You don't forget the moment you find out you've died. Not the real kind of death, the kind your body feels, but the quiet, bureaucratic kind. The kind that comes in the mail. It was 7:10 a.m., oatmeal still steaming on my kitchen table, when I held the envelope that killed me. Notice of final benefits. Date of death, April 4th. I stared at the paper for a long moment, letting the absurdity settle like dust. Dead. Me. At 70 years old and still able to climb into my attic without breaking my neck. Well, I muttered to no one. I suppose I can stop paying the electric bill. The kitchen light flickered overhead. The ballast needed replacing. I know the sound of a failing ballast, the way a mechanic knows an ailing engine. 42 years as an electrical engineer will do that to a man. The light buzzed, my spoon hung in the air, and I reread the letter. Dead. Officially. The first thing you feel isn't fear. It's insult. After Margaret died, the house got too quiet. My son, Marcus, would visit every now and then, though more out of duty than love. His wife, Augusta, treated me like a piece of outdated furniture she didn't have the courage to throw out. Dad, Marcus said 3 months ago, let me handle your finances for a while. You shouldn't stress at your age. I should have heard the hinge creak when the trapdoor opened. But grief makes you trust people you shouldn't. By 9:30 that morning, I was standing in a Social Security office that smelled of old carpet and colder coffee, holding a plastic ticket numbered A412, waiting to prove I wasn't a ghost. A clerk, young face, tie, called me to his desk. His eyebrows shot up the moment he typed in my name. Mr. Hale, it says here you passed away. I'm aware, I replied, but I walked here, so let's assume resurrection. He chuckled the nervous way people do when the joke might be true. Do you have proof you're alive? I placed my license, passport, and Medicare card on the counter. He compared each one to the screen, then frowned. Sir, your son submitted your death certificate. A buzzing filled my ears, louder than any ballast failure. My son? I asked quietly. Yes. He signed your release as next of kin. Something in my chest shifted, like a cracked wire sparking before it burns through completely. Is that all? I asked. My voice didn't shake. It surprised even me. No, sir. He also collected your remaining pension balance. The clerk lowered his voice. $68,400. And he filed for insurance benefits as well. My throat turned dry. And he closed your supplemental investment account. I felt the world tilt slightly, as though someone had cut the grounding wire under my feet. Mr. Hale, the clerk continued gently, according to the United States government, you are deceased. He paused, and your son made sure of it. I didn't speak. What do you say when the person you raised, fed, taught to ride a bike, writes your death into a form? I simply gathered my papers, nodded politely, and left the building. Outside, the July sun felt colder than it should have. Officially dead, on paper, but I'd never felt more awake. People think betrayal hits you like a hammer. It doesn't. It moves slower, like cold water seeping through the floorboards. You don't notice the chill until it numbs your bones. For the next few days, I lived like a man walking through the ruins of his own life. Everywhere I looked, something felt off, as if the walls knew I wasn't supposed to be alive. I sat in my living room, the same room where I'd once danced with Margaret on New Year's Eve, her favorite jazz playing on the old stereo, and spread out the documents the Social Security office had given me. Death certificate, claim forms, transfer approvals, all signed, all verified, all handled by my son, my own name, forged in shaky ink I had never used in all my 70 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. I taught Marcus how to write his first signature at the dining room table, told him to press the pen lightly so the ink wouldn't blot. And now here I was, staring at a stranger's hand imitating mine. I let out a bitter laugh. Life's full of circles. To understand everything that followed, you need to know who Marcus became and who he never was. He wasn't a bad child, just a fragile one. His mother spoiled him with softness, and I spoiled him with security. When Margaret passed, I shielded him from everything difficult: bills, repairs, real life. I thought I was helping. I thought grief might break him. Instead, comfort did. Then came Augusta. Sharp voice, soft smile, eyes like a calculator. The first time she stepped into my house, She looked around not with admiration, but with appraisal, as if she were estimating resale value by the square foot. Charming, she'd said, which is what people say when they want to avoid the truth. She married my son, but she married into the life I maintained. The house, the savings, the safety net. Over the last few years, I noticed little shifts. Marcus talking less. Augusta talking more. Requests turning into expectations. Expectations turning into demands. Dad, can you help us with the mortgage this month? Dad, our car needs new tires. You know how dangerous that is. Dad, you're not using your savings anyway. And then one evening, after too much wine, Augusta let her real thoughts slip. You should put everything in Marcus's name now, before you get, old. I remember staring at her over the rim of my tea mug. I'm already old. She smiled softly. Older. The conversation ended there, but the seed had been planted. Now sitting alone in that quiet house, I reviewed the stolen numbers like a forensic report of my own life. Pension residue, $68,400. Insurance withdrawal, $120,000. Closed investment account, $37,000. Unauthorized transfers over the past 6 months, $14,700. Total, $240,100. Stolen by a son who once cried because he broke his wooden train and asked me to fix it. I leaned back, pressing a hand to my forehead. A man can survive being forgotten. A man can survive being overlooked. But being erased? That's different. I spent the next morning gathering every old document I owned. Bank statements, tax returns, Margaret's medical files, our marriage certificate, even the manual logs I kept during my years at the power plant. Engineers document everything. It's both a habit and a flaw. But that habit saved me. Every real signature of mine from 1979 to 2022 lay neatly inside my filing cabinet, pressed flat like the life I once had. And when I compared them to the signature used on my death certificate, the forgery screamed. Wrong slope, wrong tilt, wrong pressure, wrong everything. A clumsy imitation by someone who thought fathers didn't check. Someone who thought I had already accepted my place in the background. Someone who believed old men stopped paying attention. By noon, I was already dialing every number printed on the government pamphlets the clerk had handed me. Half the time I was put on hold. The other half transferred to someone else. But persistence is a long-gauge men my age speak fluently. Eventually, a voice said, "Sir, to reverse a fraudulent death declaration, you need to file Form 421B for reinstatement and Form 77R for identity restoration. You'll also need to sign an affidavit confirming you're not deceased." I almost laughed. "Ma'am," I said, "if I were deceased, I wouldn't be making this call." She chuckled. "You'd be surprised." I spent the rest of the day getting passport photographs taken. A strange feeling, posing to prove you're alive. I must have looked more tired than usual. The photographer didn't meet my eyes when he handed back the prints. That night, I sat in my empty kitchen, a cup of mint tea cooling beside me, and stared at the legal forms spread across the table. The house was quiet, too quiet. It almost felt like it was holding its breath. My name, my identity, my life, all of it reduced to a stack of paper. But the thing about engineers is simple. We fix what's broken. We rebuild circuits, reroute current, restore power. And what had been stolen from me wouldn't stay stolen for long. I picked up a pen, and with a slow, steady hand, I signed my name, the real one. There's a strange feeling that comes with proving you're alive. Not pride, not relief, something closer to embarrassment, as if you've shown up late to your own dinner party and everyone's already eaten. But that's what the next 11 days felt like. 11 days of walking from one office to another, signing forms, answering questions like, "Are you sure you're the real Mr. Hale? Can anyone confirm you're not deceased? Do you have witnesses to your existence?" I started joking with clerks. I snore loudly, asked my neighbor. Most didn't laugh. Government buildings aren't known for humor. The hardest part wasn't the paperwork. It was the quiet moments between steps, the bus rides, the waiting room chairs, the minutes sitting in my car outside each office building. That was when the truth settled deepest. My son had not made a mistake. He had made a decision to bury me. to cash me out, to erase me because it was convenient. And I kept asking myself the same question over and over. When did I become easier to dispose of than to care for? By the 7th day, I'd collected everything I needed. Affidavit of life verification, reinstatement certificate, Form 421B, identity reconfirmation, Form 77R, 2 notarized statements from neighbors who'd seen me alive, copies of every real signature I'd ever signed, and most importantly, the forged death certificate bearing my son's handwriting. That little piece of paper would later shine brighter than a lighthouse in a storm. When I handed the entire packet to the legal advocate assigned to my case, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and exhaustion in her posture, she read silently for several minutes. Finally, she exhaled and said, "Mr. Hale, your son committed felony identity fraud and pension theft and insurance fraud." She tapped the forged signature. "And this is a Class C offense by itself." I nodded slowly. "I'm aware. He could go to prison for this." I looked at my hands that repaired power lines in winter storms, that held my wife through chemo sessions, that buttoned my son's shirts when he was too small to reach the top button. "Prison," I said softly, "isn't what I want." She blinked. "Then what do you want?" I thought about it. I thought about it for a long time. And when I spoke, my voice was steady even. "I want the truth to burn all the lies away. I want my name back, my dignity back, my life back." Then after a pause, "And if a man has to face consequences for digging another man's grave, that's his burden, not mine." She nodded almost respectfully. Once my legal existence was officially restored, the second half of the work began. The part that required me to think like an engineer again. Tracing circuits, following connections, finding the overload. My son hadn't just filed fake papers. He'd been draining my accounts for nearly 6 months. At first, small amounts, $200 here, $400 there. Then bolder transfers, $5,000, $7,200. Always label family support, medical expenses, or home maintenance. Except I hadn't received a single new prescription, and the only maintenance done on my home was by my own 2 hands. All in all, the missing money totaled more than $240,000. Money I earned, money I saved, money meant for my old age. The very age he declared I never lived to see. The realization came slowly, like dawn creeping over the horizon. They didn't expect me to survive this long. They certainly didn't expect me to pay attention. And they definitely didn't expect me to fight back. But even an old man still has sparks left in him. Some wires don't burn out, they burn brighter. The night before everything changed, I sat in my kitchen with my old portable radio playing softly beside me. The tea tasted too bitter. The walls felt too close. I opened my eyes, looked at the stack of evidence on the table, and said quietly to the empty room, "Tomorrow I walk into that bank, alive, not as Marcus would want me. Quiet, grateful, and visible, but as I truly was, a man who refused to stay buried. Some days come softly. Some days arrive like a hammer to the ribs." But July 1888, that day walked in wearing steel-toed boots. I remember the heat first. Thick, heavy, sitting on my shoulders like a punishment as I made my way up the steps of Pinnacle Savings Bank. I held a folder of documents under my arm. The proof of my life. The proof of my son's lies. The evidence of everything he'd taken. Inside, the air felt refrigerated enough to store meat. Rows of polished counters. A citrus cleaner smell strong enough to sting the nose. 2 customers whispering near the lone desk. I waited my turn like any other old man, invisible in his beige jacket, holding his entire existence in a folder no one cared about. Then I heard a voice. His voice. "Yeah, I'm here to finalize the withdrawal," Marcus said to the teller. "We're moving the remaining funds today." Remaining funds. My funds. My son stood 8 feet away from me, leaning casually against the counter in his best shirt, that pale blue one he saves for important days. I suppose withdrawing the last of his father's death money counted as important. The teller typed something, then frowned at the screen. "Sir, this account shows an alert." Marcus interrupted with that polished, confident tone he uses when he wants to impress people. "It's fine. We already filed everything. Just finalize it." The teller hesitated, scanning the documents. Her eyes widened slightly. The expression people get when they see something odd but aren't sure if it's their place to say so. And that was the moment she looked past him and saw me. Her face changed. Not recognition, but confusion. The kind you get when the math doesn't add up. "Sir," she said to Marcus slowly, "this man." He turned, and our eyes met. You learn a lot about a person in the half-second it takes them to see a ghost. Surprise, then panic, then a flicker of calculation. "Can I fix this? Can I talk my way out? Should I run?" "Dad," he breathed. The teller looked between us. The security guard looked up. Even the woman filling out a deposit slip turned her head. I walked toward him, steady, calm, every step feeling like a lifetime. "Hello, son," I said. "You didn't expect to see me today." He swallowed hard. "Dad, let's talk outside." "No," I said quietly. "We're talking right here." The teller glanced at the screen again. "Sir, the account owner is listed as deceased." "Yes," I said. That was the rumor. A few people chuckled nervously. My son's face drained of color. "Dad, please," he whispered sharply. "You're making scene?" "A scene?" I echoed. "Son, you declared me dead." "That was Augusta's idea," he hissed. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand very well," I said, placing my folder on the counter. "Here are my reinstated identity documents, my proof of life affidavit, my corrected Social Security records, and a copy of the forged certificate you submitted." The teller's eyes widened. The bank manager, a tall man with silver hair and a forced smile, strode over. "Mr. Hale, we were told you passed." "I've been informed of my unfortunate demise," I said dryly. "But as you can see, I remain inconveniently alive." A soft gasp came from somewhere behind me. Older folks love a good line. The manager looked at Marcus. "So you filed these documents?" Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water. It was a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "A misunderstanding is misplacing your keys. Filing your father's death certificate is something else." The manager cleared his throat. "Security, can you escort this gentleman?" He pointed at Marcus. "To the lounge until we verify these records?" The guard approached politely, but firmly. Marcus stepped back. "Dad, please, this will ruin me." I held his gaze. Calm, steady. You should have considered the cost before digging a grave for someone who wasn't done living. People were watching openly now, phones in hands, eyes wide, a mix of pity and disgust. The guard guided him toward the glass door, where he paused, turning one last time. "Dad," a trembling voice. "I'm your son." "And I said softly, "was your father." Then he was gone, swallowed by the sunlight outside. The teller looked at me with quiet sympathy. "Mr. Hale, what would you like us to do now?" I closed my folder, exhaled, and said, "Restore my accounts. Freeze anything he touched. And please note, from this moment on, I handle everything myself." My voice didn't shake. Not once. That's the thing about men my age. We don't rise often. But when we do, it's because someone pushed us too far into the ground. And I, Benjamin Hale, had just clawed my way back from my own grave. People think the worst part is the betrayal. But they're wrong. The worst part is what comes after. The voicemail apologies, the frantic calls, the sudden explanations from people who never cared to explain anything before. That began the very next morning. I had barely finished my coffee when my phone rang. "Augusta." I let it buzz 6 times before answering. Her voice came through thin and sharp, like a knife wrapped in cheap silk. "Benjamin, what on earth did you do yesterday? Marcus is hysterical. We heard you storm the bank." I walked in. I corrected her calmly. "Not stormed. You humiliated him." "No," I said. "He humiliated himself. I just showed up alive." A pause. One long inhale. Then the truth slipped out, sour and frantic. "Do you have any idea what you've put at risk?" There it was. Not concern, not shock, not even shame, just fear. Fear of what happens when money stops flowing in the direction they expected. I leaned back in my kitchen chair, letting her words rattle uselessly in the air. "Augusta," I said, "you and my son stole over $240,000. "It wasn't stealing," she exploded. It was reallocating family resources. Marcus is your son. We needed help." You needed help so badly, I interrupted, that you declared me dead? Silence. Then she lowered her voice to a venomous whisper. You old fool. You think you can turn this around on us? You think the police will even care about some paperwork mistake? Oh, they care, I said, sipping my coffee. Deeply. Because by then, I had already filed the fraud report, already sat with an investigator, already signed the statements, already provided the documents, and the investigator's words still echoed in my mind. Mr. Hale, this is a serious felony. Their assets can be frozen while we investigate. That afternoon happened. A white sedan pulled into Marcus's driveway. 2 officers stepped out. I stayed in my car at the end of the street, engine off, watching through the windshield. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want a scene. I wanted closure. The quiet kind. Augusta opened the door first. She was wearing some silk robe, hair unbrushed, a look I never thought she'd allow in public. One officer handed her a packet. Her eyes skimmed the front page. Her face collapsed. She screamed something I couldn't hear through my car windows. Her voice was wild enough to scatter a flock of birds off the neighbor's lawn. Then Marcus appeared behind her. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally, like a man whose confidence had been punched out of him. He grabbed the paper. Read it. Jaw tightened. Shoulders slumped. Even from the street, I saw the exact moment he realized this was real. Police investigation. Financial audit. Asset freeze. Possible criminal charges. The son who declared me dead now held the notice that could ruin him. Poetic in a grim sort of way. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I didn't rejoice at his panic. At 70, revenge doesn't thrill you. Justice does. The next day, I met with my legal advocate again. She laid out what would happen next. The insurance company has reversed the payout, she said. They're opening a fraud case. I nodded. And the pension board, they've begun proceedings. They'll likely require restitution. And the property? I asked quietly. She hesitated. Because the house and vehicles were purchased or maintained with stolen funds. They're now part of the investigation. I looked at my hands. The old hands that paid Marcus's first down payment back in 2010. The same hands that had bailed him out more times than I could count. And now, his house, his precious Tesla Model S, the Ford Explorer, all under potential seizure. Not because I wished it, but because that's the cost of digging another man's grave. That evening, I cooked myself a simple dinner. Pan-fried salmon, steamed vegetables, a little lemon on the side. My kitchen felt lighter, my breathing calmer. For the first time in months, the house didn't feel like a coffin someone tried to seal me in. After dinner, I took out the small notebook I'd kept for decades, the one with Margaret's handwriting on the inside cover. And I began making a list. Open a new bank account. Set up automatic payments. Transfer utilities. Consult with a state attorney. Arrange long-term trust for charitable fund. A life reclaimed line by line. When I finished, I closed the notebook gently, like closing a chapter. Not revenge, not punishment, just restoration. I didn't want my son's life destroyed. I only wanted mine back. But sometimes, when a person pushes another into the grave, they forget one thing. If the dead man stands up again, he will rise stronger than before. And I had risen. There's a moment in every storm when the thunder stops mattering. When you've been drenched long enough that the rain no longer frightens you. That's where I was now. Not triumphant. Not vengeful. Just past it. Past the lies. Past the shock. Past the ache. All that was left was the ending. It happened on a quiet Thursday morning. The kind of morning where birds argue outside your window, the coffee tastes slightly burnt, and you can feel arthritis in your knuckles before you even stand up. I was halfway through buttering a piece of toast when I heard a car door slam outside. Not a frantic slam. Not an angry one. The heavy, resigned thud of someone who knows they can't run anymore. I walked to the window. An officer in a brown jacket stood in front of Marcus's house, holding a thick envelope. A color no one mistakes for good news. Augusta rushed out first, hair tied in a messy knot, wearing a robe that had seen better days. Behind her, Marcus appeared looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. The officer spoke, handed the envelope over. Marcus opened it with shaking hands. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. His knees bent slightly, the way a beam sags when too much weight is suddenly dropped on it. He grabbed the porch railing. Augusta started yelling, not words, just raw noise. Tears smeared her mascara down to her chin. A notice of criminal proceedings. A schedule for asset hearings. The recommendation for restitution. Their perfect life, built on stolen money. Now it cracks too deep to patch. I should have felt satisfaction, or triumph, or righteous fury. Instead, I felt tired, as if all the heartbreak had evaporated, leaving behind a man who simply didn't want to live inside other people's shadows anymore. I opened my front door and stepped onto my porch. Marcus looked up and saw me. His face crumpled, not with anger this time, but with something far worse. Shame. He walked toward me slowly, each step heavy, dragging. Dad. His voice was hoarse. I messed up? I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't speak. He kept coming. I swear, he said, wiping his face with the back of his hand. Augusta said it was temporary, just until we got back on our feet. I thought you wouldn't mind. You thought I wouldn't mind being dead? I asked quietly. He flinched. I made a mistake. No, I said. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. What you did was a decision. He swallowed. You could talk to them, maybe? Reduce the charges? I'll pay you back. All of it. Just let me fix this. There it was. Not remorse. Not understanding. Desperation. People like my son don't see the moral weight of their actions. Only the consequences when the bill comes due. I shook my head slowly. Marcus, I didn't push this. I didn't create this. I didn't even want this. But you set the fire. And when the smoke cleared, you blamed the wind. He lowered his eyes. Dad, please. I don't want to lose everything. You should have thought about that before you took everything from me. A long silence stretched between us. Across the street, a garbage truck clattered. A neighbor's dog barked. Life went on, indifferent to the wreckage of ours. Finally, Marcus whispered, You're really going to let this happen? No, I said softly. I'm going to let the truth happen. He lifted his head, eyes red. And me? What happens to me? I looked at him for a long moment. The boy I once carried on my shoulders, the young man who used to fall asleep on the back seat during long trips, the adult who drifted further away every year. You, I said, get to live with the choices you made. His face collapsed. He nodded once, small, broken, and walked back to his house. Augusta slammed the door behind him. I didn't stay on that porch long. I had no interest in watching their fallout. I had no appetite for their suffering. I had spent enough years living inside their problems. It was time to live inside my own peace. 3 weeks later, I moved. A small cottage near Lake Marston. White siding, blue shutters, a porch with peeling paint that I'd fix myself come autumn. The kind of home that doesn't demand anything from you. The kind of home where a man can breathe. I bought a used rocking chair for the porch. Found an old Hallicrafters radio at a flea market and restored it over 2 evenings, soldering each fragile wire with the same steady hands that kept a power plant running for decades. My bank account was mine again. My name was mine again. My life was mine again. One evening, as I sat on that porch watching the sun fall behind the lake, my phone buzzed. Marcus. I let it ring. Then I answered. His voice was soft, defeated. A grown man finally feeling the cold reality of consequences. Dad, can you forgive me? Yes, I said. Forgiveness doesn't cost me anything. There was a long, trembling exhale on the other end. Does that mean you'll help me fix this? No, I said gently. Forgiveness isn't rescue. He didn't speak after that. Maybe there was nothing left to say. Before he hung up, I added one last thing. The truth that had taken me 70 years and one false death to finally understand. Son, you buried me. But I walked out of that grave alone. And from now on, I live for me. I ended the call. The lake glimmered in front of me. The air smelled like pine. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't scare me. Because dead men don't get second chances. But I did. And I wasn't about to waste mine.